Okay, hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. And this episode is sponsored by Bachata Radio, where you can listen to this live interview in high quality right now. And tonight, for me, I am really thrilled to have the one and only Adriana Orozco.
Hello.
Yes, Adriana. It's been too long. I mean, the last time we seen each other, I believe it was last year in Dallas, Bachata
Yeah,
Festival. And just having memories. And for me, it's like realizing over these past few months how much we've taken dancing for granted. Um, how many socials we didn't get to go to, how many events we've missed, how many Congress parties and after parties we've missed. But it's a honor, it's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
thank you for having me, Diamond.
Absolutely. Again, as I said before, with this platform, with this podcast, I think it's so important that we get to understand the artists that we admire besides just what they do on stage, but what they do off the stage. And realizing that, besides these artists being dancers, they're human beings. So having the opportunity to talk to many people, especially in the DC community and abroad, and people like yourself, I think is definitely worthwhile. And tonight, I know I feel like we're going to learn so much more about you. But, at least before we really get started into things, how have you been?
I've been great. I can't complain. I've been great. I know a lot of people have been struggling through this quarantine, through COVID times. And I just compare how things are going with them. Like some people have lost their loved ones, their jobs, money. I seriously can't complain. I have a job, I have a place, I have my family. I've been
Mhm.
doing great.
I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm really glad to hear it, and just realizing over these last few months, I think it's so important, really, for us to really check up on the people that we miss, um, because again, you can't really take life for granted. And for everyone who doesn't know, for me, when I met you, you were dancing with a company called Dance to Beat
Yes.
alongside Brian Le a couple years ago, and I really felt, especially me as a videographer, there was just certain couples, certain people when you film, it just hits. Realizing like there's certain people that just make the job easier for you. The way you guys especially dance is so fluid. It's complex but simplistic at the same time, and these both variables just connect together. And for me, it's like I've always wanted this opportunity to kind of have that one-on-one understanding who really Adriana is, because what we see on Facebook or what we see in the last shows that you guys have had over the years, it's like, this person is amazing on stage, but I bet they're even more amazing off stage. And, just having the time tonight to really just kind of go and learn about your life is really important, and again, I think tonight is going to be really an experience. So for me, what I love to do is understand the artist from how it all started, because what we just see on stage, we understand the hard work, the dedication, etc., and realizing like, how important it is that we appreciate the value, because being a dancer is not easy. It's not just getting on
No,
stage.
yeah.
It's a lot of long hours. It's a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. But also
Yeah.
during the interview, we will be having real live time comments coming in. For example, the one and only Brian Le here saying she's the real MVP. And actually, I've heard that more than once. So I definitely think it's important to really understand really where it all started from and kind of take it from the beginning. Yeah, I mean, the floor is yours.
Sure. Um, so like I was saying before, I always used to dance at home when I was a little girl, as long as I can remember. I would have like an hour in my day, every single day, lock my door, put my boombox as loud as I could, and just dance. And I didn't have a mirror. I didn't have no dance lessons or anything. I would just move exactly the way that the music told me to. And my mom would always get mad because I had the music too loud. And I always loved to dance, but my mom was never able to afford to put me to dance lessons or anything like that. So fast forward to college years, I did a thing that's well known in the DMV area called Casa Shea, which is like a dance fitness workout. And at this point, I wasn't doing my hour dances in my room because I was in college. So I was really busy. So when I went into Casa Shea, I really remembered how much I love to dance. And then after that, I thought I was just going to just be doing that. And then, like many dancers, you meet somebody
Yeah.
and they're in the dance scene, and then you start dating them. And I started dating a guy that was in the dance scene, and he always wanted to like practice these cool moves or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know bachata, whatever. Of
Uh,
course I do. I didn't know anything, or at least the bachata that we say in the dance scene, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So he would like teach me some basic stuff like, oh, this is when you're supposed to turn, or this is like a hair comb or whatever. And then little by little, I started to like, go to the salsa room, go to Mr. Mambo's, all the socials that were around
Mm.
here. Things didn't work out with that
Yeah.
person, so that ended. But like I said, I love to dance. So I stayed in the scene, and so Brian Le was really the one that got me into actually learning how to dance like a structured technique way.
Mm.
And I remember the first time he ever asked me to go to one of his practices was at the salsa room after a dance that we had. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's so good. And I couldn't at that time. I was working full time. I
Mm.
was going to school full time. I was doing my internships at the hospitals. I was like, no, I'm sorry, I can't go. And then fast forward a year later, he asks me again, like, hey, we have a new performance. I want you to come see it. I was like, sure, whatever. So I went and I saw it. I took a private with him. And that was the first time I ever heard like things like you have to be on the ball of your feet,
Yeah.
weight transfer, spotting. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he would tell me, start pushing off the floor. You have to push off the floor. I'm like, I'm pushing. What are you talking about? I had no idea. Like, and I was at that phase, like when you're like, you've been dancing for a little while, so you think you're
Mm.
like so good and everything. And I was like, oh, I know my stuff. I didn't know anything. So it was really eye-opening when I took my first private with Brian. And then right after the private, I got to see one of his practices with the team. And they were doing a performance practice. And they only had like 2 or 3 8 counts, but the team was so welcoming.
Yeah.
And when I saw the routine, even though it was a few 8 counts, I loved it. I fell in love. I was like, sign me up. I want to sign up.
Mm.
And after that, I love I love to learn the right way to do things.
Yes.
So one of the doctors I work with is so funny. He says there's 2 types of angles. There's a right angle and there's a wrong angle. So, and Brian is very heavy on technique. He will tear you down with your technique and tell you no, you're not doing it right. And in the beginning when I had all my privates and stuff, and he could tell you in my privates, I would cry because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't get it. I'm never gonna get it. And I would just spend hours on the most simple things. And I don't think people believe me when I say that. Like when I say I worked on my basic for hours, I literally mean for hours in front of the mirror, just working on it until I finally understood the concepts that he was talking about. Work off your supporting foot, go on the ball of your feet, Cuban motion, and all that stuff. I worked for hours on that. And honestly, I feel like that's the way if you want to become like if
Yeah.
you want to go to competition in dancing or become a professional dancer, you have to focus on the little things and work little by little.
Absolutely. Like you said, the intricacies, because realizing, like you kind of went back and saying, from a person that you had a relationship with, kind of gave you that nudge or like that uh, kind of first moment, like, oh my God, this is kind of a new world I'm getting into. But, realizing that for dancers, there's that moment where you're saying, I'm going to keep going or I'm fine where I am. And like you said, Mr. Mambo's, Salsa Room, some really infamous socials, especially in DC. And I think what really helped was the welcoming aspect coming from Brian's team. Because this is what happens. This has really been a recurring issue a lot. As many dancers or people who love to dance have told me the biggest thing is not feeling welcomed. And that can be the key, or that can be the straw that broke the camel's back. And it kind of discourages people from really wanting to go further into the dancing because no one just wants to go to a class and no one's really welcoming. But
Yes.
realizing people like Brian kind of came or fell into your lap, fell into your life, and were persistent because the talk that I had with Brian on a past episode, he said that exact story that he just saw something in you. But I think what he saw was a person that, no matter how simplistic the move can be, you want to get it right from the beginning. And I think it's really important what you said was with teachers, teaching the right way, because there are people that teach because it's a financial gain, but there's also people that teach because they want their students to learn the right
Oh
way.
yeah.
Because we've
Oh yeah.
seen over the years at socials, congresses, you name it, there's some people that are not on time. Still, there
Yes.
are people that you kind of question their teachings or where they learn from.
Oh yeah.
And realizing, and that I've talked to many dancers as well, is there are too many people calling themselves teachers and not having the experience,
Oh yeah.
and it's people like Brian that I love because again, it's about technique. The body movement, the feeling, the soul of it will come. Some people it happens earlier than others, but the most important thing is that technique, the timing,
Yes.
the body
Yes.
movement, the foot placement, weight transfer, like you said, and realizing a person like yourself who is determined. Because people can say, "Oh, I practice," but like you said, you took maybe one step and just practice and
Oh yeah.
practice.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, trust me. Oh my God. And I would record myself and I would send it to Brian and be like, "Am I doing it right now?" He'd be like, "No." I'm like, but that's what it took. And I tell people all the time, whether they're taking privates, group lessons, you won't get the aspect until you do it by yourself 100 times.
Mm,
And then once you understand it and then you can verbalize it or do it yourself and explain it to someone else is when you really understand it. And like you were saying, there's a difference between being a good dancer and being
yeah.
a good teacher. You
Yes.
can be a very good dancer and not be the best teacher. You could be a very good teacher and not be the best dancer.
Yeah. Yes. I definitely agree. So, a question I have is when you're working with Brian and you're training, did you kind of notice the moment where, like, all of that training, all of that practice was really kind of breeding results for you? Kind of you're seeing the progress.
Yes. So I think it took like a year for me to see, and I'm a slow learner. I'm a very slow learner when it comes to choreography, technique, or whatever. Very slow. But I remember it was a year into practicing my basic. And one of the things that Brian always will assess on the dance team is your basic. And that's usually what we start with. Okay, let me see everyone's basic. And he pointed me out, saying, "Look at Adriana. She's grounded. She's pushing off her legs. She's isolating." And I was like, oh my God. Obviously, I didn't show it in my face, but I was like, oh my God, like I'm doing it.
Yeah.
um, and I saw the difference. I saw a huge difference in my dancing, but I also felt the difference.
Mm,
Even when I was dancing with someone during partnership with connection, because connection is also something super hard, probably one of the hardest things to try to learn on how to connect enough, not
Mm,
too much and not too little. So it's just little by little, and I try to always remember that when I'm training. If there's something that I'm not getting, if I'm not getting like a quadruple spin or something, like I just try to think of the beginning. In the
mm.
beginning, I thought I was never going to be able to do a decent basic, and even though it took a long time, I got through it. Same thing. You just have to practice every single time. Notice the smallest things that can make the biggest difference. And it's not for everyone. Not everybody wants to compete in bachata. Not everybody wants to become professional. Some people just want to dance, and that's fine. If they just want to dance and you just want to do, a little bit of footwork, do a little bit of whatever, that's your thing. But my thing is learning the exact right way to do it.
Yeah. So then when you talked about, as you said, many people who dance or in the bachata scene specifically talk mainly about before they kind of got in the scene, they had an idea of what bachata was. But we've also realized over the years that things evolve over time. We realized that the style of dance evolves from what we knew at home, dancing at parties, to when we come into this kind of scene and everything is just different. Realizing the bachata of yesterday is not the bachata of today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Realizing that with people, then kind of creating a fusion. I especially saw that around maybe 2012, 2013, around that time, especially in New York. The bachata I knew, I mean, the Moderna style, the modern bachata of what we've seen with Ataca Alemana, realizing now there's this thing called sensual. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And seeing that many dancers took a liking to it or took a love to it because it was different.
Hmm.
The, the focus was the same, but the experience was different. It's like when people call it traditional, modern, now you have sensual, which is focused on connection. When you started dancing bachata or learning bachata in a classroom setting, was it kind of the sensual style, modern, or what did you kind of classify it as?
It was definitely sensual.
Okay.
So when I started taking like group classes and stuff, sensual was, and I feel like is still very big. And I loved it. I mean, like the way that a lead can make their follow look like, if you're gonna make me look good, sure, of course, do it. I absolutely love it, and I so there's like a big controversy, I guess, with
Mm.
people who always say like, oh, that's not bachata, that's not, and it's like it's not traditional bachata,
Yes.
but dance is dance. Dance is an art. You can mix it with whatever you want. If you're feel, it's an art. There's no taking out technique.
Hmm.
There's no wrong way to do it. The way that you want to dance is the way that you want to dance. Now, if you want to go to competition, okay, you need to add your technique and fundamentals. Now you
Yeah.
have to pay attention to that. But other than that, like you're just dancing, you're having fun, you're playing with the music, and you're expressing yourself with a partner. So when I first started taking like group classes, it was definitely sensual. I loved it. Brian is not a big sensual person. So I always have to tell him like, make me do this, make me do
Yeah.
that, or whatever. So he warms up to that now.
And see, realizing that because when it comes to sensual bachata, especially for me in the beginning, it was an attention grabber, but at the same time, in my opinion, when I first saw it, maybe I was seeing it from the wrong eyes of the people I'm watching in socials. Um, I think people really thought what they saw on YouTube they could recreate at a social. And I think that for some people was a huge turn off. But before we really get more into that, of course, Brian says, "Damn, way to call me out." And a really good note, especially from our friend, Mr. Luis Alberto from Luis and Jess says, Adriana is one of the smooth, I'm assuming he means smoothest
Oh,
follows I've ever danced with. And I can,
thank you.
I believe I've danced with you a few times. So, and realizing too, I think that was a big thing was in our dance scene, what happens is, especially at socials, people have to understand if you want to dance this type of dance or style, learn first. Learn
Oh
the
my God, yeah.
learn where to, at least for leads, learn where hand placement should be. Learn, especially when people love to do in Sancho Bachata, is the dip, and realizing um, you can be, or you can cause a victim, basically, in the sense of, I've seen it many times,
Oh
especially
my
with
God, yeah.
leads dipping follows endlessly, and a lot of them don't know what they're doing,
Hmm.
and that can really turn off a follow of wanting to kind of come back, because especially with Central Bachata, I think another issue was just the respect factor between two dancers. That's something I've talked heavily with many leads and follows, especially as a videographer, because people have to understand the videos that I might make may look great and like, oh, you're giving shine to these artists, but there's so much footage that I have of the bad that I
Oh,
have to look through and saying, I'm seeing the issues, I'm seeing the problems. It's really, a lot of these people who are dancing are not being taught correctly. They're just seeing a YouTube video saying, I love the shine, or what they do is they fall victim to, I just learned this in the class before the social started, let me try it
monkey see, monkey do.
out. So, when did you feel, or when was that moment that you realized, okay, I'm learning, now let me see what the stage is like?
Oh boy. So that was during one of Brian's practices with his performance team. And he is slightly different from his training team, where they're just, learning how to dance bachata, versus his performance team.
Yeah.
Performance team has to have technique, fundamentals, timing, all that good stuff. And it seemed like a challenge. And I'm definitely not the person to want to be on stage, everyone watching,
Mm,
lights, cameras. I I used to be like a deer in the headlights whenever I would be social dancing, and I feel light and camera right on me. Oh my God. I would freeze and I'd be like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing?
mm,
So it took a lot of encouragement, but it felt like a challenge. Like, I know I could do this. It's going to be hard, but I know I can do this. So yeah, it was definitely during one of his practices. I was like, you know what? What the hell? I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
mm. And it's something you said too really hit me, because as a videographer in the dance scene, that was something that I really loved doing different. Was you talked about the lighting, and many dancers understand this. At a social, there are two different types of dancers. There are dancers that once that light hits, they're in the moment. But there's also the other people that are deer in the headlights and free.
Yeah.
I've seen it countless times, but I've also adjusted. And for me, I really thrived on not using a light as much, because what I noticed, especially, was I want to capture you in your moment. I want to capture you in your honesty. I want to capture you in full transparency without you feeling like you have to show out. And that was
Yes.
something that I noticed, especially, and we'll get into it later with Dallas Bachata Festival, with people like you and Brian, was you made it much easier because you were always in the moment. It didn't matter if you danced with a person you knew or you didn't know. That was something I loved, was you were in the moment 24/7 throughout that whole of that. And for me now, seeing the moment you kind of understood, okay, I want to start performing. Was it originally you were doing performances and then you and Brian kind of said, hey, maybe we should do this together?
So, Brian, I remember when I first joined the team, Brian was talking about looking for a partner, and obviously in the beginning, I barely knew how to do my basic correctly. So I was like, obviously not me. But off of training on the dance floor, we always had a good connection from the very, very start. We always had a good connection. Whatever it was, like, we could always play with each other. So he asked me one day, he's like, do you want to try like a little trial thing? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And in the beginning, it was rough because, he's been doing it for ages. And I'm a brand new well, I felt like a brand new dancer learning all this stuff. And when he did have any partnership,
Mhm,
he had professional dancers. So he had to really build up his patience with me. And I had to build up my own patience because, of course, I want to be able to perform and give everything I have correctly.
mhm,
But at the same time, I had to take time to learn. So in the beginning, it was pretty rough. And we're very different. He's very on the go, I'll figure it out, like what I'm going to teach 5 minutes before. And I'm very like, no, I need to prepare. I need to know what we're going
mhm.
to teach, how we're going to teach it, what's the goal. I need to know all the details, prepare, prepare, prepare. And he's very like, oh, I don't know. I'll figure out in 5 minutes. So it's like, so in the beginning, it was a lot of bumping heads, figuring
Yeah,
out what we had to do, how to make it work. And now it's finally gotten into a flow where I can I can adjust to what he needs and he can adjust to what I need.
got you. So, do you remember the first show that you and Brian did as a couple?
The first show that we did as a couple, I think it was in Texas. I think
Yeah.
our first show was in Texas,
Wow. Wait, at
Dallas.
the oh wow.
It was it was a Shawn Mendes piece. There's nothing holding me back.
Wow, wait, was this do you remember the year?
20, maybe 2018. We did two Shawn Mendes choreographies.
I
There's
remember.
one black costume,
Yep.
one forest green costume. It was the black.
Yes, I remember because I did film that at Dallas. I didn't
Oh my
realize that was yes,
God.
I didn't realize that was the first show.
That was our first
Mm.
one. I was so nervous. Oh my God. I was so nervous.
Man, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, people have to understand. Uh, it's a total different beast when you're on stage
Oh
because,
yeah.
as they say, "Oh, look at the light ahead." We realize in most congresses it's not like that, unless you're like in a big hotel or something. Most of the time, you can really see everybody, and they can
Yep.
see you. So we understand, and I love the honesty of saying like the nerves that you guys have before shows, or like what your true feelings are before you get on that stage, but I also love understanding that, Brian had his way and you had your way, but you were able to work. Because I think that's a big issue with a lot of couples. And I say from experience of teaching, but watching the dance scene is one thing that's constant. There's always a new dance couple. There's every year there's a new couple, but it's couples that come and go because
Yep.
also the communication, realizing that it's a different beast when you're just performing, but then you're performing and teaching.
Yes.
And having to have that joint brain of saying, all right, we may think different, but when it comes time, we make it work. And I mean, I think that's special because you have to understand life isn't perfect. Partnerships aren't perfect, but if you learn how to work together, it makes things much, much easier. Especially a funny comment here I see from earlier was Teresa saying, my neck and my back. Man, but also here, a really good friend of mine, Mr. Owen Wexler, saying, I know a couple follows who've got TBIs. I don't know what TBIs means, but from bad dips. People really need to know what they're doing with dips and tricks. Totally, totally, totally agreed. As well, here we have the one and only Melvin War in the building. Yes. For everyone who doesn't know, Melvin War makes amazing, amazing music, whether it's remixes, original songs. Also, his music is on Spotify. I think it just hit over 790,000
Eh.
streams. Like, that's amazing. As well, here
That
we have the one
is.
and only Kim Chi. And I definitely agree. Adrian on the stage is a beast. But of
Thank
course,
you.
Melvin here saying I thought the background was other people in the interview. I'm sorry,
That was
Melvin. No,
me.
it's all Adriana. But, and having those connections with artists, other artists that we see at congresses, but also the musicians, the people who make the music that we love to dance to is really important because we realize this too. Besides the dancers work with the promoters, the social dancers work with the DJs and the producers because realizing the producer gives the music to the DJ The DJ plays it. He understands from the crowd's perspective of what they're feeling, what they love, and realizing people like Melvin and many other remixers, DJ Soul Tricks, and etc. They really are helping the heartbeat of our dance community because pushing out song after song, remix after remix, is important because we are also the people kind of giving back to them like what we're feeling. Because, like you said, one of your first shows, especially with Brian, was a Shawn Mendes song, and realizing most people would say, I would assume your first song would be a bachata, Frank Reyes or something, but realizing with Central Bachata, what was great was it was different because the addition of using English songs and putting a bachata beat or
Yeah.
structure behind it, it also helped people who weren't, I would say, fluent in the culture. It kind of gave them a comfort of saying, "Wow, I know this song," and they put a bachata under it, and it's like, for me now, a question I have is, what are some of your favorite songs over the past few years that you've heard, maybe at a social congress?
I love like 100% of music from Grupo Extra. I
Mm,
love, 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 love. Oh my God, I can listen to their music every single day. I love them. Their voice, the emotion they put into the song. I love it. Danny J,
mm,
all, or mostly all traditional. Even though
yeah.
I don't dance a lot of traditional, I love traditional music.
Mm,
The guitar, the different instruments, the timing, I love it. And again, with the emotion, like the emotion when you can hear the singer's voice and you can
mhm,
feel it, not just hear it, but feel it,
yeah.
it's a different height of when you're listening to the music. I love traditional music. I just I just love a lot of different bachata.
It's true, especially like realizing in our scene, especially with sensual, having that connection. It's nothing like there's nothing like having if it be a person you know or don't know, you just dance with, and it's an experience. It's so different rather than having a dance and you're just waiting till the song is over.
Yeah.
Um, we've all been victim to that
Yeah.
because there's those songs like I still remember back in the days dancing bachata, and you got 5 6 minute songs, but nowadays songs are kind of more shorter, uh but also I think really what's important is the experience, and I use that word a lot because I think that's what I love about the community, but I also think it's lacking because so many people I'm seeing just doing move after move, and it's like you're just looking like someone else instead of just developing your own style. I
Yeah.
think that's the really important thing. So you're able, like you said, Dallas Bachata Festival was one of your first ones. So over time, of course, you're performing, you're starting to teach now. What was that experience like of now, going to an event and you're hired now to teach and you're teaching people you probably never even met before? What was that experience like?
Very nerve-wracking.
Mm,
So whenever I'm put into a new situation, no matter how prepared I feel, I will always get anxious. That's just how I am. But again, so before our class, I would talk to Brian, okay, what are we going to teach? Let's go over the counts. No matter how many times we go over the counts, I'll still, feel like I'll forget it. I'll blank out.
mm,
But I mean, when you're in the situation, when you're there and you're teaching people, thankfully, all the classes that we've gotten to teach in public, they're very welcoming and they absorb all the knowledge that you try to give to them. And they
mhm,
come with questions. So it was a very good experience. No matter how anxious you feel right before, in the end, they're coming here to learn from you. You
mhm.
give them the knowledge. Everybody leaves happy.
There you go. Even Ryan saying here, "Sweet Jesus," everyone will know how I teach by the end of this interview. I don't know if you're trying to keep it a secret. We also have Winnie here showing some love, as
Winning
well as Mr. Bryant here.
cheeks.
How he says, I have had the honor and privilege to perform on stage with Adriana, low key one of the hardest workers in the scene. And again, it's like I think too is also us as artists, we kind of get lost in the moment. We're going show to show, Congress to Congress, class to class, and sometimes we don't get those moments to just like decompress and enjoy what we're able to do because realizing, like you said, the people you come in contact with, you want to have them leave with a sense of they've learned something
Yeah.
because too many times I've seen in classes people are just doing body roll after body roll, but don't even understand why they're body rolling. They don't even
Yeah.
know, like you said, how to move your body. And it's people like Brian, like with that technicality, that it's key because there's so many teachers now. I mean, realizing there's so many central bachata teachers, but I think too, it's people like you and Brian that are different in my eyes because it's the connection and the communication that you guys, especially on stage, have. And it looks fluid, but it also shows the hard work and the practice as well. Here, talking about practice, Kim, she's saying, I remember at my first practice with Dance to Beat, Adriana almost killed me practicing tricks. I mean,
Oops.
he said when the music just flows through your body. I mean, that's definitely, and I believe here we have a very special guest, Ali Oro,
Ellie. That's
saying,
my sister.
"Oh wow, that's awesome! I'm glad to see like having family kind of tuning in and seeing probably also what you're gonna say,
Yeah.
man. And of course the one and only Varak
Be
Chang,
right.
yes, Mr. DMV himself, and just understanding over the years as teachers, as artists, you're also becoming leaders in your community. And I love also the name Dance to Beat. So that was something I've always wanted to ask of how did that name come about?
So I guess so I joined Dance to Beat like I would say ages after it was
Mm,
created. I think maybe when it was on its eighth year or something.
God,
And what Brian told me is that you're not just dancing to the music, but you're dancing to beat. So I was like, okay, sure.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's
I'll
funny.
go with it. I'll go with
You
it.
told me the same thing. The reason why I asked yourself was, over time, the understanding of where things come from can evolve. You have a moment where I thought it was this, but maybe it's a much larger picture. But realizing that is true. Again, a name like that is so simplistic, but it means so much. Because again, as we love to dance, we need music. We need a beat behind that allows us to showcase what we love to do.
Yeah.
And now I think for me, I think it's really important that again, technique key. For anyone who dances, has danced, wants to dance in the future, technique is extremely, extremely important. So over time, and I think this is something I want to get into before we get into the segment I call the randoms, which I loved was when it came to visuals, and I seen the visuals that you and Brian were doing, I fell in love because a person like Kyle, for me, when he does the SBKZ media,
Yeah.
you have to understand too, with visual artists, they're helping the dancers or the subjects tell a story. Um, Besides Kyle and the other people you've worked with, and what I loved about the visuals that you guys were producing or coming with and showing the scene was so special. It was really moments that I think it hit different. For me, I love watching a visual and I just want to understand what's happening beginning, middle to end rather than just a simple demo class. I mean, one of my favorite ones, and I think you had Brian had talked about it as well. It was that infamous scene that this he had his shirt off and it was like the
Oh
bling.
my God.
I know.
Yes, yes.
I mean, for me, I can say as well as others, that was different. It was just you guys. I felt like there was a moment there, meaning of you guys were a step ahead of many others, in my opinion, because you understood with those visuals and the people within that who were helping create that you were taking it to a different level. This wasn't just teaching a class, showing you a few steps. Let's tell stories now. Let's besides that one, I love the one with the cars. I love the one at the laundromat with the pho, which I'm a big fan of
Mm,
myself.
yeah.
Gotta give it up. But also too, your dance to beat socials. And I think too the visual side helped immensely because we also realize with social media and promotion and branding, coming stronger, each and every visual helps artists like yourself stand out. So a question I have is, what was those experiences like of these different visuals that you were kind of sharing with us? What were those moments like for you?
Oh boy. So Brian, like I said, Brian and me are very different. Brian is a perfectionist, so a lot of times we wouldn't prepare a choreography going into these visuals. And we would just wing it, right? And what the person recording would have a vision, and then we would try to incorporate that. But we would have to do it so many times, again and again and again and again. And at the point, I was like, okay, I'm over it. Let's just, is that fine? Like the last take, is that good enough? No, we have to do it again. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, it was like doing it 500 times. But then you see the video, and I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of like it. All right, we could do another one. We could do another one. So that's kind of how it went. I'd be excited, then we do it 500 times, and I'm like, I'm over it. See the video, and I'm like, oh, okay, it was worth it.
That's
So
good.
it's
I mean, 'cause-
fun.
no, no, absolutely. Because like I love understanding the feelings that artists have while they're making these visuals. Because we also understand this too. The same artists that we see on stage and we love, sometimes they may be just shy people beyond that. I mean, I've talked to many artists and realizing that I'm like talking to them and I'm like, I love filming you. But I've also had conversations with artists and they're kind of nervous of how they look because they love to perform a social dance, but once it's on camera, very kind of nitpicking everything and
Yeah.
kind of second guessing yourself on how you look. But for me, I can definitely say with the amount of visuals you guys have came out with, it looked fluid. It looked comfortable. That's one thing, comfort. Because
Yeah.
you're doing these certain types of visuals with certain emotions attached to it. Um, People understand, people realize, and people just can soak it in, and you're kind of taking people on a journey. So definitely big ups to Kyle, especially with SBKZ Media. Actually, one of my favorite as well. And realizing, even Rock says here, Adriana is more patient than Brian.
That's true.
Man. So also too, one more question I did have before we get to the randoms was the dance to beat social. And what were those experiences like of now you're not just performing and teaching, now you're creating a place where people can come and just have their own type of experience. So what was that like?
So our dance to beat socials are very special to us because one thing that me and Brian both notice is that in a lot of socials that we have, whether in the area or outside the DMV, is there are some people, most of the time beginners, who come to socials and they don't feel welcomed. Or it feels like when you're dancing with someone as a beginner, it feels like they're doing you a favor. And of course, I've experienced it. Brian has experienced it. So we really wanted to emphasize in the fact that you can be a beginner, you could be intermediate, you can be advanced. It doesn't matter. You're here to dance and have fun and have a connection with someone. So one of the rules, obviously before COVID, was all of our dance team members, anyone who's going to be there, you dance with everyone. And
Mm,
if you see someone sitting down, you ask them to dance. They might be too shy. I've had friends that I brought out and I was like, just
mhm.
ask anyone to dance, they'll dance with you, but they felt too shy.
Yeah.
And it ruins the experience instead of someone just coming up to you, asking you to dance. And it doesn't matter if you're doing the basic for an entire song or if you're doing crazy tricks or whatever,
Yeah.
as long as you can make this dance the best dance. there's always something that you can get out of every single dance. And I think that is what we really try to push. Anyone who comes to our social, we want them to feel welcomed and we want them to walk out satisfied with the dances that they've had.
Mm. And something especially Owen says here, Brian and Adriana's in class teaching metaphors are always on point, but also this note of saying dance to beat socials are not only high quality but unique also. Socials at places like the Block, L2 Lounge, Lost Rhino Retreat, that socials aren't typically located at. And realizing too, like understanding there are people in your community that see what you want to do and embrace it, realizing they understand the message that's there. As well, we have here the one and only Jess Shepherd of Luis and Jess saying, wonderful, more people should think like that. Building people up through dance. Because
Yes.
what you said also about making sure that your students created a connection and a bond with other people who maybe they're not familiar with, because that is a big issue a lot of times in certain dance schools, is realizing when you're allowing the community to come in, it's not a good thing to just shut people who are new out, maybe intentional or unintentional. Realizing there are going to be new people, new prospects of people that, hey, maybe I just want to go Friday night. I heard about this from a friend, and realizing that just having a comfortable atmosphere can change everything. Because, like you said, for yourself, you coming into a safe space or a place that you felt comfortable made you come back. And I
Yep.
think that's a very key thing. And now
Yes.
that kind of helps me transition to the segment that I have called the randoms, which allows myself and the audience to get to know and learn a little bit more about you. But I also think during these questions, other people will definitely be chiming in as well. And of course, Winnie here says Brian is the bad cop and Adriana's the good. But I definitely think this part will be fun. So just let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. And I think I know the answer to the first one, but I
Okay.
will tell you is what is your favorite food?
Korean barbecue.
Oh, yes. I love Korean barbecue myself.
Love it. So
Yeah.
good.
All right. I'm liking where the first question is going. Next is if you can close your eyes, be at a social or an event right now, where would it be?
Bachatopia in
Mm,
LA.
okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Next question is if you could close your eyes and you're at that event, what is one song that you could dance to right now? What would it be?
Anything by Grupo Extra.
Okay. Okay. And kind
Yeah.
of harping on the question about favorite food here, we have the one and only Cat Arias.
With egg.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh my God. Me and her connect on an egg level.
Egg.
Love egg.
I love Korean barbecue, especially the bowls, the BB bop, you
Oh
name
yeah.
all that stuff. So definitely love Cat because we had a great conversation about egg and fried rice. So yeah,
Yes.
man. So next question I have is, what would you consider your spirit animal?
A horse.
Mm,
Well, my Chinese horoscope says I'm a horse, so that's why I see myself as a horse.
okay.
But also because I feel like horses are strong, independent, and they just want to roam the entire place.
Okay. I like that.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Very adventurous, I hear as well. And
Yes.
Ali over here says, "Thank you, Adriana and Brian, for always." I mean, I'm assuming saying
Prime.
yes, making me feel welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Next question, and I love when people answer this, is what would be your dream vacation destination be?
I would love to go to Bolivia. So I'm Bolivian,
Okay.
but I was born and raised here in the USA, and I've never gotten to go back to Bolivia. And
Mm,
I hear a lot of cool stories about it, and I have like a whole bunch of family over
yeah.
there. So I would love to go over there. I was supposed to go there this year, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But that's my dream vacation.
Okay. I like that. And also harping on a question previous we had about the spirit animal. I believe Vi or V. I don't want
V.
V. V says your Chinese zodiac is a horse.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I like that. It's kind of everything kind of blends in itself. All right, next question is, and definitely this one I feel is a little spicy, as I call it. What is a huge turnoff for you, or what would be the advice on what not to do if they want to dance with Adriana?
Um, so I can't stand when a lead is like dancing with you, but not actually dancing with you. Like
Not
they're
even
dan
looking at you.
yeah, they're like over here, like looking everywhere else. Like I'm right here. Look at me. Or when a lead like is too hard of a lead,
Yeah,
like I feel like I'm gonna get hurt. And so I have to loosen up a whole bunch, right? Just so I don't pull anything.
yeah.
Or if someone gets me like too many dips in one song, like I can only do a few. I have lower back issues, so
Mm.
when they pass too many dips, I'll be like, I'm sorry, I can't dip anymore.
even
So
even Kimchi here says, bring out the list. But also a thing that Jess said of saying the same thing she did on our previous episode. She definitely went in depth about that, realizing the toughness of a lead. And I think especially what you're saying, given the big claps up she is, and saying something very important because what you're doing is giving the perfect tool and advice to people, especially leads, whether they're male or female. Realizing you don't have to be rough. You don't have to dip me five, six, seven times. For many people, whoever's listening, understand as well as Adriana doesn't like that. I don't like filming that. So
yeah.
when you ask me why am I not in the video, I hope you understand because it's not that you did these dips, but I'm more looking at the facial reaction of the follow, seeing if she's comfortable, he or she is comfortable, understanding is this a dance that has connection or is one person going one way and the other person going the other way?
Yep. Yep.
And as well as Owen says here, the side leans over the dips. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'll do a side lean over a dip anytime. Yeah.
Okay, look at that. And she says, and Jess over here says, find me a girl that likes most. I mean, to be honest with you, with many, especially many follows, I think the sentiment is they like doing dips. But there is a point when are we just doing dips or are we having a dance? Because I think too a big thing what a lot of leads need to understand if you're gonna dip a girl or a follow, what you need to understand is also the space around you
Oh
and
yeah.
realizing a dip isn't appropriate when the studio is packed. Nothing is worse because I've also seen for a side story. I've been at events that uh, a lead was dipping a follow and they didn't see the person ahead of them, and the person kind of, you know, that moment in bachata when they do that little dance break and they separate. Well, the person looked, and the person came up and kind of hit from the back, and the person had a bloody nose, and that
Oh
was
my god.
yeah, and I caught all that. I caught all of that on camera, and it
Oh
was
my
so,
god.
I felt so bad for the follow because they left,
Yeah.
and it's like
Oh
it's these stories that
no.
I tell and I know about because I filmed them. These are moments that I can't, I wouldn't show. I learn from, but I also teach of and I show them privately of saying this is what you should do and not do because I mean if you want to have more and more dances as well. Bryant says I may or may not have video proof. I mean, you know, and Kimchi here says, keep it simple. Connecting and doing basics all night is the best. Because, I mean, again, if you're not comfortable with doing a move, don't try it on someone you don't even know or have never danced with. Because, again,
100%.
nothing's worse than two people dancing and one person is literally trying to teach the other person how to do a move that they're trying to do. I mean, but sorry, we got a little sidetracked there. But
No.
the next question would be, what would be your superpower?
Ooh. I would like to fly so I don't have to deal with
Okay.
traffic anymore.
I mean, most people tell me flying, teleportation, especially when it comes to dance. You can be at the social, you can be at where you need to be. I like that. Definitely love that one. Next one here, and I love asking this question. Can you, and it's, I know many people have so many people they could name, but what would, or who would be three people that have been most influential to you at this point in your life? And this can be dance related or even life in general.
Definitely my mom and dad. They came to the United States when they were in their 20s. They didn't know the language. They had a baby. They didn't. They found a place to live like last minute, and now they're entrepreneurs. They have their own business. They have a big house. All of their kids, grew up pretty well. We're not in jail or anything like that. So they did very well in raising us with the little that they had.
Mm,
So every time I think of something that I feel like I can't do, I just look back to my parents and how they struggled. I can't imagine myself going to another country, not knowing the language, and then trying to make it there and a kid. It's very hard. So definitely my mom and dad.
and you can they can be joint. This one can be targeted as one.
Okay. Let's see. Second one would definitely have to be Brian. I feel like he was the one that saw something in me before I was able to see something in me. He believed in me more than I believed in myself in the beginning, for sure, and he pushed me. Let's see, the third one, I guess it would just honestly, I feel like everyone has left an impact on me, whether it was just through a dance or whether it was a private lesson that I learned. I I like to pick up something from every single person and learn something and take that with me.
I love that. I love that. Next question I have would be, what is a special talent that many people wouldn't know you have?
Um, I'll, I'm really good at giving shots, like
Okay. Wait, you told me.
like shots,
Oh God.
not
Okay.
shots,
Okay. I mean,
shots.
it's funny you said that. It's funny. My wife, who works in the hospital, loves doing that. She loves to find the veins and the needles, and that creeps me out. So you guys,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what that. Oh, I mean, I wouldn't understand, but that is so. Again, anyone, if you need help on, if you ever need a shot, um,
I don't make them hurt.
oh,
I
you
have
found the sweet spot.
I find a sweet spot and I have a secret on not to make them hurt.
Okay, okay, all right. And also harping back on a previous question, when you talked about back issues, it was funny because, of course, Brian says she has back issues because she was doing that new WOW routine. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God.
Uh,
Yes.
yep. Oh, even V says the
Oh
same.
my.
We might get into that, but hopefully, but this last question I have, and I love asking everyone because the answers are just so random. So if you're on an island, and I'll give the disclaimer in the beginning, there is no Wi-Fi. If you're on an island, what are three things that you would have with you? And I'm hoping you have some really good answers like Alemana had Tanya, because she really helped George out on that. But I would definitely want to see what your answers would be.
So I heard their interview.
Yes.
So I kind of cheated a little bit,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I would bring a pilot, a
Mm,
helicopter, and champagne.
okay. Okay. Champagne diet and just
Champagne diet, yeah.
okay. I like that. And just fly in the sky. Cause oh, I like that. Perfect. All right. No music, champagne pilot in
No,
the
I'll listen it to here.
all right. I like that. I like that. All right. Well, definitely thank you for this quick segment. I definitely enjoyed it. And especially in the comments, you'll see later on, other people have enjoyed it as well. And now that helps me transition, especially before, especially COVID hit. an event or a moment that for me was really special last year at the Dallas Bachata Festival. We had a time, me, you, Brian, Luis, Jess, Jay, the other Jess, and there was also one more couple.
Mika and
Yeah,
Emmy.
Mika and Emmy. And I remember we did that couple this quick thing in the back, and for me, I really loved it because for me, seeing four different artists or four different pairs of artists creating a choreo that quick of a time, feeding off one another. For me, it was a special moment as a videographer, but as a dancer, because you got to see creatives create. And for me, at the outcome of the video, with little resources that we had, for me, it created something really special because I saw something for me that I feel I wish in the future we could see as a routine. And it was like something just so simplistic, something that Lewis had created and talked about. Because I remember he said, "Hey, find a time we'll all meet. We're gonna do this." And when we did it at the end, it was amazing for me because just seeing that in those few hours or even less than an hour, we created something. But to see the reaction from each and every one of you of seeing yourself, and it looked fluid. It looked like, wow, this should have been performed. So for me, this is something I've always wanted to say was, you know, it really showed how much of a creative each and every one of you are, and realizing you might come from all different places, but when it comes to dance, that connection never dies. And for me, I hope, especially in the future, that that little thing that you guys did can become something on a stage, especially Jess says here that was so it was. It definitely was fun. I mean, going from the pool, going into the back and doing this, it was dope. Especially my
That was
favorite
so much
part
fun, yeah.
was the end with the girls.
Yes.
And, oh, yes, and that look in the camera. I mean, because for me, I thrive on facial expressions. Nothing just makes me more happier than filming artists or dancers and they're feeling it, not just with their moves, but with their facial expressions. So for me, that was a moment for me I cherish still. I still watch it from time to time. And, definitely hope when things get much better, when we find some type of normalcy, that we can have those moments again.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Absolutely. Even Owen, who was there as well last year, said that festival was 100% worth flying halfway across the country to be there. Because again, we have events we've been to over the years that just give us a different feeling. Like yourself, you've traveled a lot and seen a lot. And a question I have really before we get into the present day are what are events to like what do you look for in an event that you're attending?
Organization, for
Yeah.
sure. I want to know what time we're going to be teaching,
Mhm.
where we're going to be teaching, when is call time, when we're going to be on stage. All of that's super important to schedule your day. But also diversity in the classes that they have a little bit of everything. So not just the students can go and learn, but we can go also
Yeah.
and learn. And just connection on the dance floor. None of the, being stuck up or anything. I only dance with performers kind of thing. Just
Yeah.
dance with everybody.
And I appreciate that because especially we understand going to events, you sometimes have the clicky groups. And I'll tell you one thing that I love and is so simplistic, and many dancers thrive on it is air conditioning.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing, right?
Yes, I mean, we've been to events that we're just sweating and just like have to tell people, wait, give me some time. But events like, especially like Dallas and other events, that besides the comfort level, organization, which is very key. Organizers, please understand the artists come to your event that you're hiring. You really should show them how legit your event is because nothing is worse than an artist coming from DC to wherever on the other side of the world, even, and just seeing disorganization.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not about just all of the names that you're able to bring, but it's also the experience you're able to give those artists for them to come back. Because I think that's very important, that promoters and organizers have to understand and respect their artists more,
Hmm.
appreciate them for what they do. It's not just about what they teach and what they perform, but you want these people to come back. So it's things that you're saying are tips and tools for people in the future when we do have events again, and people are able to attend. Is these are the things people should learn if you want to have a successful event, or even if you want Adriana to be at your event. I think what you're saying, many artists say the same
Oh
thing.
yeah.
You know, so now we're at present day, or even before present day, realizing with COVID hitting us, I believe around, I would say even January, slowly realizing February, and then March hit, and then things just completely shut down for most of the states.
Hmm.
Realizing that, like I said earlier in the interview, was how we took dance for granted, how we were so used to having a social every week, maybe every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something to look forward to during the weekdays, and at one point it's done, it's obsolete, it's a memory. And realizing how it really affected our dance community for a very long time, even still.
Yeah.
For me, as you've known, I've talked very heavily and strongly about how I feel about our community because, again, we realize with what we're going through, it damages our community so much because what do we thrive on? Connection. We thrive on being together. We thrive on socialization. For me, I knew once this hit, it was going to change our dance scene long term because hotels don't want that liability.
Yep.
Realizing that all it takes is one person to infect a whole room. And me and you have been to events that there's 500 plus. So, also realizing that it affected many of the dancers that we knew on a personal level or someone they knew. Realizing that in our community, no matter if you were in DC, New York, wherever you were, you either had COVID or you knew someone who had COVID or you knew someone who knew someone. And realizing, especially in the early months, kind of the memories we were cherishing of what we had, but also seeing certain states and certain organizers taking a stand, but also now providing virtual events for our community to enjoy, even though we weren't able to be there physically, having something we can look forward to. But for me, a question I definitely have is kind of looking back from the beginning until now, for yourself, what have been your feelings on how the community has taken everything?
Um, I'm gonna walk and charge my phone real quick. Um,
Gotcha.
so that's a hard question because everybody will have their opinion.
Hmm.
Everyone has strong feelings about how COVID is being handled,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But I think it's very important to look at the facts. Um, so the way that I look at it is we have facts, we have knowledge. People decide what to do with that. There's not, I can't tell people, hey, don't hold a social or don't be doing partner work, don't be doing this. I can only give information that I
Mhm.
know, that I've learned. Um, for whoever may not know, I'm a registered nurse. My specialty has been infectious disease for a few years. So we saw all of this coming out
Mhm.
as it began in China. Um, and, people will continue to do what they wish to do, no matter how many of the cases continue to go up. The hospitals are getting filled, ICUs are full, running out of ventilators. People will continue to do what they do and they decide to take those risks. And one way or another, I hope that they understand that the risks that they're taking. Um, of course, you can't, like people say, you can't stop your entire life, right?
Yeah.
You decide which risk you're going to take. So for our students, we no longer do any partner work. We have COVID questionnaires. We have contact tracing, and it's not just something we throw out saying, "Oh yeah, we do contact tracing." No,
Mhm.
I have my occupation where I've done contact tracing, so I know exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
Mm.
And we always let our students know, even though no matter what precautions we try to take, there is still a high risk that you may get COVID. If
Yeah.
you will be dancing, or even if you're not dancing with us, if you're going out to see your friends, you need to be careful of the people that you're around, because although you may feel fine if you get it, someone that gets it from you may not feel fine and may be in the hospital on a ventilator. Next thing you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's really mixed feelings on what everybody thinks that everybody should be doing. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the hard facts. Cases are rising. Vaccine is available for healthcare workers right now, or
Mhm.
the ones that are most susceptible right now. And of course, the vaccine is a whole different story. To each their own. But I would just say, look at the facts. And even if you read an article on
Mhm.
something, there's a difference between, an epidemiologist saying
Yeah.
something and you read an article and then just deciding off of that, because there is a certain amount of education that you have to have.
Yeah.
Healthcare workers don't just read an article, okay, and now you're able to, give these shots. There's a lot of education that goes through it.
Mm. No, absolutely, absolutely. And really hearing from you about how you feel, I think is very important because again, you are a part of our dance community. You also do work in the health field. Um, but you also have your own experiences of seeing what the community's been going through. But again, understanding that again, people are gonna live their lives, and people are gonna do what they wanna do. But there are also people that understand the severity and move accordingly. And being able to talk to people like yourself and others, I love because you guys are the heartbeats of our community. You are the leaders of our community. So hearing your voice, hearing your opinions is essential. Um, and for me, a question I definitely have before we're able to conclude is really what do you feel is the future for our dance community?
It I I think it's gonna be different. Like, I don't think it's ever gonna be the same. I think socials will always have sensitivity to cleanliness in
Yeah.
the socials. I think even if the vaccine, is given to almost everyone, there's still going to be people that come out with masks just in case. Because I mean, even before COVID, if someone had the flu at a social, then a whole bunch of people got sick. And some
Yeah.
people who are immunocompromised go out and they dance and they will feel better with a mask on. So
Mhm.
I think, no matter how much we try to get back to normal, it's not going to be back to normal. And we just have to adjust to that. I mean, dancing with a mask is uncomfortable, but being on a ventilator is way more uncomfortable than having a mask on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's really the hard truth because we understand is that the reality. Everyone's affected differently. A person who has COVID may not have the same symptoms, whether they're asymptomatic or they show symptoms. And realizing, especially with our dancing, I think a lot of dancers are very nervous about going to big events again because, again, with the understanding of so many people can be asymptomatic, this isn't something you can see. So realizing, again, like I said earlier, a lot of hotels don't want that liability of having an event and mass amount of people get sick, but also realizing now events are going to have to put in their budget some type of precautions on COVID safety. I think that's really going to be prevalent. Even besides the topic that I talked about months ago with Ciara Morales and Raven Sutton about adding ASL interpretation, Now, when in terms of COVID, adding those safety regulations in place so the people who attend can feel that the event cares about their safety first. I think that is really imperative. And for me, again, definitely tonight, I've been lucky to be able just to learn so much about you because as much as I admire what you do on stage, I love even more what you do off stage and realizing how many lives you've affected in a positive way, whether it be teaching or whether it be in the health department and giving people just valuable information that they probably don't know. Uh, and I think we need more leaders like yourself in this dance community who are honest, who are transparent, and just want to see everyone do well. I think that's the most important because I do believe whenever we do have a quote unquote scene again, things will not be the same. But I'm hoping that many people can learn about when we come back what we need to see change. Um, Having more safety precautions, treating your artists better, just giving a better experience for everyone involved. So for me, I've been thankful to have you on tonight, but definitely at least before we go, if you do have any last words for myself and the audience, but also how they can reach you to kind of learn what you're up to next.
Yeah. So, of course, I want to thank you, Diamond. You are definitely a positive light in the community. And I love that you interview different people, you get to know them. It helps the whole community. And to the community, I will definitely let them know that I am always open for questions. If it's dance or infectious diseases, COVID, whatever, I love questions and definitely don't feel, afraid to ask me something. Um, I'm very open. I will prefer Instagram. I don't always get to check my Facebook Messenger, but whichever one, I'm very open. I won't bite your head off. Unless you're Brian, I won't bite your
Okay,
head
unless you're
off.
Brian, so everyone that knows, you can definitely reach out. But Brian, give us some time.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and again, Adriana, it's been really a great time just talking to you, getting to know you more, realizing of the similarities we share about what we want for our community. Because I think no matter the good or bad, realizing that our lives have changed with being in this kind of industry, things we get to experience that many people don't, the lessons that we learn over time, but now the solutions that we've created now that can be implemented in order to create a much safer scene overall. Because I definitely do hope in the future that we can all learn from this, learning not to take things for granted, but learning now how to have a different approach on doing things that we love. So, tonight, I definitely thank you for coming on. Of course, we know you are a very busy person. And like I tell many of my guests, it's our first interview, but I would love to have you on in 2021 and just catching up with you and seeing what you're up to next. Um, Definitely big shout out to Dance to Beat. Big shout out to the DMV area because I can say I've had some amazing interviews with some amazing artists from the DMV area. I mean, DMV, DC in general, I love it. The atmosphere, the people, the leaders like yourself that you guys have. Definitely, DC is a dance city, hands down top three that I've been to, and the people that I've been able to connect with. I definitely see so many promising things for the future. But again, Adriana, I thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Definitely stay safe and definitely cheers to a new year. Everyone listening, thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's been great. Definitely, Adriana, check the comments after. You can see what you probably missed. But definitely can't wait to talk again and see what you're up to.
Thank you so much, Diamond.
Absolutely, everyone. Please have a great night, everyone. Stay safe and cheers to a new year.